burning of Washington, D.C. occurred in 1814, an event concurrent with the War of 1812 between America and Britain. On August 24th, General Robert Ross and his British force set fire to a number of public buildings, but most importantly, the home of the president himself. This was the only time since the Revolutionary War that a foreign power captured and occupied the United States Capitol.
After the defeat and exile of Napoleon Bonaparte in April 1814, the British were ready to initiate conflict with the United States. British troops were dispatched to the American coast by the Earl of Bathurst, the Secretary of State for War. Originally, England's intentions were not purely of destruction, but to distract the American government from its campaigns against Canada.
On June 25th, Rear Admiral George Cockburn wrote to Cochrane saying that their defenses were weak and they were vulnerable to being attacked. July 17, Cockburn recommended the attack in Washington because it would be an easy attack, and he said the greater political effect likely to result. Another possible British motive for the attack could be retaliation for the mass destruction the Americans had previously inflicted along the north shores of Lake Erie in May.
When the Capitol went up in flames, a number of historical events took place, popularizing a number of individuals, one of them being Dolly Madison, the First Lady. When U.S. government officials fled, Dolly Madison remains behind to organize the slaves and staff to save valuables. She is known for cutting a large portrait of George Washington out of its frame and carrying it off, but it can be debated by many that she would have never had enough time to do so. It's been guessed that John Seuss, the doorkeeper, and McGraw, the gardener, took the picture down and sent it off in a wagon.
Fortunately, after the attack, the sandstone walls of the Capitol were not damaged. The reconstruction of the building started in 1815 and was finished in 1830. John Armstrong resigned his position as Secretary of War, which was filled a month later by James Monroe, and American morale was damaged. In addition, the majority of the British public was appalled by the burning of the Capitol and other buildings at Washington. In fact, most leaders of continental Europe denounced the burning of Washington.
The turning point of the War of 1812 was most definitely the Battle of Baltimore. It consisted of 3 locations: North Point, Hampstead Hill, and Fort McHenry. On the 12th, at North Point, about 5 miles away from the city, the British landed 5,000 troops and met American resistance of approximately 3,000 men. Major General Samuel Smith was in command of America's defense, and he assigned Major General John Stricker the task of utilizing his 3,000 men to stall the British force long enough for Smith to complete his defenses in Baltimore. At Hampstead Hill on the 13th, Americans dug 3 miles wide to defend eastern approach of the British towards Baltimore.
At Fort McHenry, about 1,000 soldiers waited for British invasion of Baltimore. On the 13th, Congreve rockets and mortar shells pounded the fort effortlessly, and after an initial exchange of fire, the British withdrew just beyond the fort's range. The attack continued for 25 more hours, but damage was not as detrimental as one might think, thanks to prior fortification. In the night, British commander Alexander Cochrane ordered some boats ashore, but American defense was too concentrated. Also, British Lieutenant General Arthur Brooke was unsuccessful in his attacks, and he was outnumbered, and so he retreated.
Francis Scott Key, an American lawyer and poet, was on a mercy mission for the release of the British prisoner Dr. William Bean. After convincing the British to release Bean, the British forced them to stay on board the ship in the Patapsco River until the attack on Baltimore was over.